What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the OU recap episode of The Coach and the Couch Potato. As always, I am Jeremy the Couch Potato. Opposite side of the screen, we got Coach Slate, and we are here to just kind of break down what we saw on Saturday night. Buckeyes grab a 37-9 victory over the in-state Bobcats, but definitely a lot to take away from this one.
Oh, yeah. And we said, that this was going to be a little bit better game than many expected. This OU team coming in with a win over West Virginia, and then they arguably should have had a win over Rutgers as well. So it turned out to be a good game. I was glad to see the Buckeyes get a night game. I'll be interested to hear about how the atmosphere was, but yeah, it was definitely a good game and a lot to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. I saw a couple guys on, I think it was the 11 Warriors message board, talking about how they wished that these two teams would play every year because the atmosphere was that fun.
Yeah.
Just kind of good spirited. I felt like both teams played pretty respectful. There was the one little dust up when the Buckeyes were on offense, and then OU kind of poked the bear of Jeremiah Smith. Then, again, you saw why Brandon Innis is a captain.
Yeah.
He stepped right in there, tried to break that up. Numbers wise, we often talk about how stats tell the story. They don't tell the story in this one. Buckeyes outgained OU 572 yards to 181. 6 trips to the red zone, 2 touchdowns, 3 field goals, and 1 no points. We'll talk about that in just a second. Julian Sayin, 25 of 32, 347 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 picks. And honestly, both of the picks, I felt like I was watching Joe Flacco week 1, how both of the picks were just kind of freaky circumstances.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Julian Sayin is continuing to show that his accuracy and his ball placement is elite. I do think the interceptions were, weren't necessarily showing who he is as a quarterback. I think, the accuracy and the ball placement is something that is awesome. The deep balls that he's throwing down the field, I love seeing the air that he puts on the ball because it's truly given the receiver, listen, I got 2 of the best receivers in the country. I'm giving them the opportunity to go make a play on the ball. And I love that. And so I don't think the interceptions are indicative of who he is. And so, I can almost assure you that those won't be a common trend. And I guarantee you Coach Day was in his, after that game, in film sessions. And so I really think Julian Sayin is only going to continue to get better because, man, just to see the zip that he has on the ball and just the pinpoint placement. And, one thing I'm curious to see if he'll continue to get better at. If it's not there, he's not afraid to check the ball down.
Yeah.
And that is something that you see in like the true pro style quarterbacks. And sometimes I think Coach Day is just like, dude, take the shot. Take the shot. Take the shot. And so I'm interested to see if he just eventually gets to that point where he's just like, what did Kyler Murray say? D-Hop's down there somewhere. I want to know if he gets to that point where it's like, hey, JJ's down there somewhere. I'm chucking it up.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Obviously, we have always heard and read, that he's very smart with the ball. So that's a hard habit to break.
Yeah.
You almost want him to be that kind of gunslinger. Brett Favre, Baker Mayfield, Geno Smith last night. I mean, Geno was trusting his arm last night. It'll be interesting to see for sure. Carnell Tate looked really good, went over 100 yards. JJ over 100. Max Clare, showed what we think we're getting there. But I think the story of this game starts with the red zone inefficiencies on offense. I don't know if this falls as Brian Hartline trying to find that identity as a play caller. Do you not have full-blown faith in some part of your unit? What say you?
I think there is a lot that goes into this. Obviously the Buckeyes had almost 600 yards of offense. So the offense was moving the ball. when you get down into the red zone, there's so many different things that the defense can do that really it's a tighter area, and so it's almost a more advantageous for the defense if they're playing more in more zone coverage and you're having success throwing the ball. And so you would hope that you're able to get some of the run game things going on. That is the one area that I did have, I guess, some pause, is that, we weren't just able to just run through them and just pound the ball into the end zone with our run game. I would like to see us, when we get into the red zone, let's get those guys in the backfield going. Let's utilize those tight ends at times. Let's be able to spread them out. Those are things that I would like to see us be able to do. But I just also think, sometimes teams play good defense. And I think Ohio was playing good defense in the red zone. They were making plays. Julian was taking his one-on-ones. I mean, Brian Hartline was drawing up plays to get our guys the ball, right? The JJ was getting the ball. Like, he was trying to find ways to get JJ the ball. You're going to take those one-on-one matchups, and Ohio's guys made plays in some of those spots. Like, those things happen, and you can't fault the play caller. You can't fault Julian. Like, you're going to take those one-on-one matchups with your guys. Are there things that do give me some pause? Yeah, there are. But I do think that is something that will get corrected with film. And I also just think Ohio played some good defense at times. I mean, this is not just some random slouch that we were playing. I think Ohio is a pretty solid program who's done a really good job against some Power 4 programs. And I think they've done a decent job, over the last few years with this current staff. And they did some good things. And so, listen, it's not going to happen. You're not going to score 70 every single week. You got to execute. And I can say moving forward, I'm sure we'll get more and more creative and do some different things in the red zone. But, I would like to see us score more points, but, the Saturday wasn't our day.
No, not at all. And, you kind of hit on it. OU is not a bad squad. And so this was almost kind of a trap game in a different kind of way, because you're coming off of playing a team that you were exponentially better than, and then you've got the bye week. Some guys will go home for a couple of days on the bye week if the schedule allows. The guys look forward to just being able to sit around on a Saturday and watch ball together. Like, there's a lot that goes into this. You've got not a huge road game on the field wise, but you are about to have to adjust to a Western leg, a 3-hour time difference. Luckily, 3:30 game there is a nooner at Ohio State. Not a massive adjustment.
Yeah.
Obviously, I don't know what the travel plans are. I would assume they'll go out a couple days early, though. So yeah, it had all the makings of a struggle bus. Speaking of struggle buses, and this is where I was kind of going, about, does Hartline have worries about part of his unit? Obviously we're not in the business of singling guys out.
Mm-hmm.
But on Saturday, it is what it is. You had 6 accepted penalties. 2 of them were on Tegra Shabola. There was a play where he absolutely whiffed a block. And the only reason we're bringing this up is, A, because of the run game. We saw a lot of good in the run game on Saturday that we've been wanting to see. But also because you then slotted Ethan Onyanwa in the game for like 15 plays across the game. You've got another guy who's ready. And, obviously Tegra has earned his spot in the rotation or his starting spot. But with what this team's starting to show, how do you handle that as a coach?
Yeah, and that's tough. You definitely want to respect and you definitely want to show some sort of loyalty. I know there are some fans that are going to hate hearing that, but Tegra has been here for 4 years now. He's done everything that they've asked him to do. He's been patient. He has busted his butt. He's changed the way his body looks. And, in the playoffs, he did some good things when he rotated in. And so there are some really positive things that Tegra has done that the coaching staff respects, and they want to make sure that they're giving him those opportunities. I don't know if this was a situation where, we're going to give Tegra the bulk of the reps and we're going to see how he does. I wonder if it was that type of situation, because there was, I think he got 20 to 25 more reps than Onyanwa did. And so I think they wanted to see it. This is just me assuming. I think they wanted to see how Tegra would do with the bulk share of those reps. Listen, I think Tegra has all the intangibles to be the guy at right guard. And there are times where he shows a ton of flash and he mauls people and he looks great when he's pulling around on counter. But then there are times where he does have some lapses and he may whiff on a block and things like that. And so, bringing in Onyanwa and having that pressure there, I don't know if that's something that is weighing on him. It will be interesting to see how they handle it moving forward. But this also is Ohio State. And they're going to get to that point where they're going to have to play the best person that's going to help them go back to back and win another national championship. And I don't know if that's going to be anytime soon. But I trust the fact that Coach Bowen and Coach Day and Coach Hart are going to put the right guy out there. And if it's Tegra, it's Tegra. If it's Onyanwa, it's Onyanwa. But I do think they want to give that opportunity to Tegra first because he has earned it. Rightfully so. But I do think moving forward, you might see Onyanwa start his reps start to increase because when he's in there, I do think he's starting to get more and more comfortable at the guard spot. And I do think there are some things that they like that they see in Onyanwa when he's in.
Sure. And, and what obviously, we started that conversation with about the run game. We kind of hit on this last week, and I think you laughed at me a little bit. I think it's becoming more and more evident we have a clear-cut running back one.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I listen, I'm a big time CJ Donaldson fan. I think he is a bruiser. And those are my type of backs. But Bo Jackson is showing a different kind of burst right now, man. And you called it. And I gotta give you some love, man. You were the one that called it. You text me immediately. My when Peacock was behind for whatever reason.
Yes.
And so when you text me that, I knew for a fact. I was like, oh, there's got to be a big play coming up. And then boom, like the next play, there it was. And so listen, man, if he continues to play like that, there's no doubt he's RB1. And I think, that it's so interesting because CJ Donaldson gets interviewed after the game and they ask him about Bo Jackson and he's hyping Bo Jackson up.
Yeah.
And I just think that's so cool, man. Like that just says a lot about Coach Locke and what he's building in that room. And it just says so much about the culture of the program. Like you just transferred in, you got 2,000 career yards and this guy might be taking your spot. And he's hyping up Bo Jackson. And so, listen, if he keeps playing like this, watch out.
Yeah, I mean, and I think the other cool thing is I feel like in the second half of that game, James Peoples looked different. He finally looked like James Peoples. It's almost like, he's sitting there watching Bo, and he's like, yo, I gotta, find myself.
Yeah.
And obviously there's going to be a spot for all three of these guys.
Absolutely.
But you're going to get into a game where you need that home run threat. And I think the kid's got another gear. His acceleration, his explosiveness. Obviously CJ Donaldson is always going to have a spot when you need 2 yards.
Yeah.
But you need him to be confident in that 2 yards. And there are times I feel like in short yardage situations, he's been hesitant. Now granted, we're only 3 games in of ideally a 16 or 17 game season. There's a lot of football to be played. There's a lot of adjustments to be made. And you're going to see games where James Peoples looks better. You're going to see games where CJ Donaldson looks better. That's the great thing about the new schedule is it's more reps for guys over the course of the season.
Yeah, and like you said, man, this is going to be all three guys are going to have a place in this offense. There is no doubt about that. I think James Peoples, like you said, is seeing that competition, and Bo Jackson is really pushing them. So it's going to only bring the best out of them. And so if you can have three running backs that are ready to go, you think back to all the Alabama teams that were awesome under Nick Saban. They were freaking stacked in the backfield. On one of those teams, Josh Jacobs was RB3.
Yep.
Right. And he's unbelievable. And so, like, if you can have three legitimate running backs in the backfield, that is a great problem to have. And so, I just hope Bo continues to develop and can stay healthy, because what we saw on Saturday, if we can continue to get that, he's gonna have a permanent place. And he looks good at number 25. That's a personal thing, but
Right.
Hopefully that stays.
Speaking of rotations, it's no secret Brian Hartline does not like to rotate receivers for whatever reason. He's got us 3 or 4 guys. Yeah, and with Ohio State, using a lot more multiple tight end sets. You've got Max Clare. You're not seeing more than 3 wideouts on the field hardly ever. I would be curious to know if we've ran anything more than 3 at once. But I feel like Brandon Innis is just getting overlooked. Like, I don't know if it's Sayan's not. There were times Julian saying, I don't know that he made the wrong read because we don't know what the play call was. But I think they said it best on the broadcast. It just seemed like he was looking at the wrong part of the field. And the part of the field he was not looking at, Brandon Innis was open multiple times.
Yeah, I do think it'll obviously not in the huddle, not listening, to whatever the play call is. Don't know the reads, they're
right.
We don't know where Innis falls in the progression, and so he could be read number 2, read number 3. He could be on the backside, and and Julian may not even be reading that side of the field.
Right.
And so we don't know any of that stuff, and we will never claim to know those things.
No.
But to the fan who's watching from home, there are times where Brandon Innis is running wide open.
Yes.
And so I do think they recognize that Brandon Innis is an asset to the offense, and they're trying to get creative in ways that they can get him the ball. They've been handing him the ball out of the backfield. I think you're going to see more in the screen game for him as well. They're going to get creative in ways to get him the ball. I do think he does get lost in the shuffle because Carnell Tate can go up top and get it. JJ can go up top and get it. They're not asking BI to do those things. And where he gets lost in the shuffle is Emeka Egbuka was asked to do the same thing that Brandon Innis is being asked to do. But the difference was Mecca's sophomore year, he did so much more. They pushed the ball down the field because he was the number 1 target. Right? He was the top target. Brandon Innis is not going to be the top target in his time here at Ohio State. And so that is where this is like a unique situation. And that's why I think Brandon Innis is just an absolute dog for truly sticking this out, because he's never going to be the top guy here. And so I do think the Buckeyes will find ways to reward him. I don't know what that is. I don't know what that looks like. But I do think he'll be a 30 to 40 catch guy by the end of the season, even if they have to force feed him at times. But they're just gonna have to get creative and getting him the ball, kind of like they did, against Penn State. When they finally did rotate some guys in last year, they did draw that up for BI, and hopefully we can see him getting the ball, because when he gets the ball in his hands, he is a playmaker.
Yeah, for sure. And I think you saw another layer of his development. Coach Day had basically questioned the punt return team after the first 2 games of the year, and you saw Innis be more aggressive. He had the 25, 30-yard return.
Yeah.
I might be in the minority here, but I do not want to see Jeremiah Smith returning a punt ever again. I get why you did it and where you did it at, because you were going to have a short field. Makes one guy miss and he's going to probably house it. but that is just such a huge risk. I mean, there's a reason that in the NFL, your guys who are returning your punts most of the time don't play another position.
Yeah, but there's also another way to get your best player the ball.
Touche.
And I know, when Odell Beckham was in his prime in the NFL, they would throw him back there on punt return and they would find a way to get him the ball. And so, I get it, but I also have those same worries as well.
Yeah, I think that kind of ties up the offensive side of what we saw in the OU game. The defensive side of life, outside of one atrocious play tackling wise, the defense continues to do Matt Patricia things. I'll let you dive into that in a second. We'll hit this stuff real quick. Sidebar, because we're talking about defense, we are currently trying to figure out a way to navigate the world of film study. We had a killer episode, breaking down the Grambling game with some film from the Texas game, and we got hit with a copyright notice. So we'll be fully transparent there, but it was great.
Yeah.
Slate did his thing. I was noticing some things, popping some questions. Just like I went back and looked at the text a minute ago, how you were talking about red zone defense that OU ran. One of our listeners, on the one touchdown that Sayin threw where he ran around for a minute, he's like, that's the most painful touchdown I've ever watched. And I'm like, dude, there were 7 guys in coverage.
Yeah,
where do you want him to go? Like, so I pick up on that kind of stuff too. Obviously, you're digesting, the who, what, when, where, how, and why. And I'm just like, there's this many guys back there.
Yeah.
Lorenzo Styles gets dinged up. We don't really know what's up. That stinks, man. I hope it's nothing major. We saw some shifting there, like Slate said he thought we might see in that scenario. Jermaine Matthews slides inside, Devin Sanchez on the outside. Coach Day said today they're also going to look at Bryce West, Aaron Scott. I know for a nickel roll, you would probably lean on Bryce West out of those two with what you've seen from those guys. Yeah. I know you're a huge Lorenzo Styles fan, so this one kind of stinks.
Big time Lorenzo Styles fan. I just admire his work ethic, his willingness to come in without a scholarship and just grind. And I hate to see him hurt. When I saw his arm just lay there limp, I was like, my gosh, I knew it. It looked like it could be serious. And so hopefully he's back quickly. But the immediate fix was to bring, Sanchez in at corner and to move Jermaine into the nickel spot, which in spring ball, that's what they did as well. They had Aaron Scott or Sanchez be the outside corner, and Jermaine Matthews went into the nickel. Jermaine is pretty comfortable on the interior. Jermaine played in the nickel as well last year at times, and so I like Jermaine on the outside. I think like he's bought his time. I think that's where he should thrive, is on the outside. Now, I also know that Jermaine is going to do whatever is best for the team, but I also think Jermaine is one of the best corners in the country, and so I would love to see him on the outside. I think Aaron Scott and Bryce West are both capable of holding down that nickel spot because of their physicality. I think Aaron Scott's physicality is something that is often overlooked. And he is a guy that I would really take a hard look at for a spot like this because he's hungry and he wants to get on the field. Obviously, Bryce West wants to get on the field as well. And so those are two guys that I would not overlook being in that spot as well. Obviously, Miles Lockhart is somebody. I don't know if they would look at Sanchez as somebody that could play on the interior as well, but maybe that's something that they do. I just really like Jermaine on the outside, man, because he's special out there.
Yeah, I would be interested to see if Sanchez's size affects him in the slot or in that nickel role.
Yeah.
Aaron Scott, I am telling you guys, Slate loves IGB. I'm a huge Damon Arnett guy, partially because those dudes have dog in them. You want a dude with some dog in him on this roster, it's Aaron Scott.
Yeah, man.
Um,
Yeah. Straight out of Springfield. Like it is ingrained in him. And so
937, stand up.
yeah. So I would love to see him get an opportunity to be in there, man, because I know he's chomping at the bit to be the guy.
Yeah. Um, as much as we've talked about offensive line rotations and that type of stuff, we've obviously talked about the defensive line a lot too. One thing I did not catch, during the game, Edric Houston did not start. Tywan Malone did.
Yeah.
What do you make of that? Do you think it was a learning lesson? Do you think Tywan had a great week of practice?
Yeah, I'm honestly, I really don't know. There's the video that's circulating around where um, Edric is giving one of the coaches, a big old hug before the game, and they're having some sort of conversation. I don't know what it was, and so is it a lesson that's being taught? Did Taiwan, do something to earn the opportunity to start? I don't know, but they did end up playing the same amount of snaps.
Yeah.
Is it something that they were trying to like maybe cut back on the amount of snaps that Edric was going to get? Maybe he's still having some of the ankle issues. I don't know. But nonetheless, it is good to get Taiwan more reps. It is vital that these interior defensive linemen continue to get more and more reps.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of D-line reps, a name we have talked about a lot. Will Smith Jr. actually played the most reps of the D tackles, only by one, over Edric and Taiwan. But just something to note, that they are starting to show some trust in these guys. The D-line, I feel like in the Matt Patricia defense, the D-line wreaking havoc allows him to do what he wants to do. Linebackers played great. DNs played great. Obviously, like we said, we're navigating the whole film thing. But what did you see Saturday that Matt Patricia had not shown until then?
There's the personnel packaging that Matt Patricia is putting together is something that I love to see, and he's fully utilizing the athleticism that we have with our linebackers and our defensive line. I mean, the way that we're using Caden Curry right now, I absolutely love seeing it. We could talk about the scheme and the schematics and everything, and it's hard to do it without the film, so I really won't get into that. But the one thing I love seeing is we are moving Caden Curry around, and I love that. I've always thought with his size, like it's hard for him. He's not a huge guy, 6'3", 6'4", 260 pounds. He's just not a really, really monstrous guy. They say he's 260. I don't even know if he's that big.
I don't think so.
Like, I don't know if he's that big, but they're lining him up as a zero technique nose guard over top of the center. And he's winning one-on-ones with speed. And I love that in passing situations. He's lining up at defensive end. He's dropping into coverage, like fully utilizing his strengths. And that's one of the things that Matt Patricia does so well. And I think coming from that Belichick coaching tree, it is looking at what your guys can do and their skill sets and morphing your defense to fit that skill set, not making them fit your defense.
Yep.
It's making your defense fit your players.
Yep.
And that to me is being a good coach. And I love that Matt Patricia is doing that. I love the fact that CJ Hicks is getting, around 20 reps a game. He's on by the end of the season, we're going to see him start getting more and more reps. Bo Atkinson is getting more and more comfortable. They're moving him in on the interior defensive line at times. Arvell Reese is an absolute alien, and they just keep moving him around in different spots. Like I love seeing the different personnel packages that we're showing, and I know that's going to continue. And so that's the one thing that Coach Patricia, is doing that I really, really respect. And I love seeing us really do some of the same things that they were doing in New England. It's really cool to see.
You hit on something, and I'm never going to pass up a chance to take a shot at Jim Knowles. I know you are a huge Jim Knowles fan, and Jim Knowles did a lot of really good things here.
Yeah.
We heard the rumblings of a disconnect between Jim Knowles and Larry Johnson over personnel. And to see Matt Patricia come in, and I don't know that you could even at this point, obviously you might be able to because you're a defensive guru. But
whoa, I wouldn't say all that.
Look, but when it comes to knowing scheme, you know your stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know that we could identify a base defense yet. Because you've seen a 3-2-6, you've seen, a true 5-man front, we've seen pseudo 5-man fronts.
Yeah.
Like, it's awesome. Like, if you're Dan Lanning, who obviously you would not see Ohio State until a Big Ten title game, you're starting to think, oh wow, we thought we had issues in the championship game last year. But I think obviously Matt Patricia's still not shown his cards yet. I don't even know that we're to the turn card yet. We might have seen the flop. But if I'm James Franklin on November 1st, I'm worried because, Jim Knowles went to Drew Ayler and told him everything that they showed on him. Matt Patricia's not Jim Knowles.
Yeah. And I agree with that. Yeah, I'm a big Jim Knowles fan when it comes to schematics. I think Jim Knowles has done a lot for the game of football and the way that the modern game of football is played. But the one thing that I think Jim Knowles had, and a lot of coaches do have this, and it's not a knock, but I think a lot of coaches have egos that get in the way. And you have a certain way that you do things, and this is the only way that things can be done. Matt Patricia is at a place in his life where you can see that he is truly trying to get back to enjoying the game of football. And having been a coach who has been at that place and been at that place where you have got to get back to just having fun, or else you're just going to leave the game.
Yep.
Matt Patricia is there. And so instead of saying, hey, Coach Johnson, you're 73 years old, man. You are going to do exactly what I say, or else we're going to find somebody else. He's saying, Coach Johnson, these are the things that I'm assuming this is what's happening. These are the things that I would like to do. What is your suggestion on how we can utilize your guys within the parameters of what we would like to do? And as an older, stubborn gentleman that I'm sure Coach Johnson is, that appeases him and that makes him feel good. You know what I mean? And like, it's just something as little as that. And so I bet Coach Johnson feels, and I'm just assuming, I'm really assuming here. I'm sure Coach Johnson feels that he's able to have true input. It never felt like he probably felt he could have true input on those things. And so I just love seeing what we're doing from the defensive side of the ball. And I truly, from a personal side of things, love seeing a coach who fell out of love with the game of football and is finding his groove and falling back in love with it, having his kids out on the field and things like that before the game. Like, I get emotional thinking about it, man. And so like that right there is one of the things that I love seeing for Coach Patricia.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited to see where it continues to go. Obviously, bye week coming up, so no before the battle this week. Buckeye Leaves, obviously you could hand out a bunch. I did write down 3 names.
Okay.
We've talked about all 3 of them. Bo Jackson, Caden Curry, and Bo Atkinson.
Those are all 3 good ones. I was going to go with Caden Curry. I knew you were going to go with Bo Jackson for sure. So I stayed away. I stayed away from him. I stayed away from him. No, I got to give some love to Carnell Tate.
Yes.
I mean, just silently continuing to just be a fantastic receiver for us. And so I got to give some love to Carnell Tate. Max Clare, He's becoming a better tight end every single week. Um, he's going to be more and more featured. I love the fact that he caught a touchdown. I love the fact that they're trying to get him involved in the offense, and so I want to give him some love as well. Give him a Buckeye leaf, and then the last one was going to be Will Smith Jr. I think the things that he's dealt with in his life, and then when he got to campus, not being able to stay healthy, he had to gain some weight, different things like that. He's now gaining the trust of the coaching staff, and for him to lead the defensive tackle group in snap count, I think that's pretty awesome. So those would be my three.
Yeah, for sure. Just kind of some housekeeping stuff with the bye week. Obviously, no before the battle this week because there's not a battle to be before. So on Sunday night or Monday night when we record, whatever night it ends up being, probably Monday night. It's going to be a great chance to do, a 25% of the season recruiting discussion. And obviously there will be things that come out this week to discuss, but with the bye week, the staff is going to be on the road. That'll give us a chance to know by then who they went to see. It's going to be obviously guys they're looking to flip and or late offers. Berm came out today and said that somebody, I'm assuming it's going to be Ryan Day, honestly, is going to go see Adam Guthrie, which we've talked about. They're going to continue pushing. There's some more smoke that they've been in constant contact with Luke Wafel again. UCLA fired Deshaun Foster this week. There's a couple guys there. So, yeah, it's going to be real interesting to see how dominoes fall because I think with the bye week, you're going to see some amped up recruiting stuff. There's been a tease of a commitment out there from Hayes. New offer went out tonight. We'll talk about that kid on the next episode. But one high school related thing. Go watch the highlights of Jet Harrison from this week.
Yeah.
Like, I got a text from a guy who he's a pretty hardcore Buckeye fan, but when it comes to recruiting, he's casual. And the text said, "Is he Marv's brother? And have we offered him?" I'm like, yes and yes.
That's awesome.
So, yeah, we'll be excited to dive into that one. Obviously, like the video, comment, share away. We're still going to do that, the giveaway in conjunction with hitting 1,000 followers. You guys drive the algorithm for us. So keep up with that. And that's all I got.
Yeah, that's all I got too, man. Make sure you like and subscribe.
All right. Well, we will see you guys next week. Have a great week and weekend.